I've seen your sneezing fits before though, so we'll see if they return or not.
Yeah, I've got to I've got to hold back here. For people who've been on calls with me, like I'll just disappear for like 5 minutes while my body rejects having a nose. So this week, actually, we're finally getting into service audits. A little lighter attendance today. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are signing up for the webinar here in 2 hours. So once a month we have a webinar. This month's webinar is over how to talk to your CFO. Like you need to be able to get online with your CFO because they're the ones that have final approval. They're the ones that are going to sign your paycheck. They're the ones that are going to sign the project plan because it's a great idea and it's going to allow for the company to grow. So if you aren't signed up for that webinar yet, I would get on it. I should probably put it in
I'm working on it.
Oh, you're working on it. So we'll
Yep.
put it in the chat here for anybody. Being April, for some reason everybody hates April, and so
I think we're all sour because we've got to do taxes.
it must be what it is because we've got a whole bunch of new customers coming up, members coming up, joining the community next month. And March was an amazing month. Record attendances at the webinars and at our weekly meetings, and we had a whole bunch of new members come on. And then April came, and it was this void.
Yep.
And now May's coming up, and everything's kind of stirring. The pot must be stirred. Maybe everybody's panicking from summer. But it's just funny to watch the numbers, like on the number of attendees to our community events, and sometimes it's a ghost town. There's a handful of people. Sometimes we've got a third of our community just sitting here listening to us jabber on, and that's just kind of the flow of things, especially when it comes to the service audits. That's why I wanted to bring it up today, is because when it comes to service, it's a little bit more of an art. You don't know when your customers are really going to need you, but you want to have services built in such a way that you're aligning with their needs, and then you got to program enough engineers to be available to manage those services.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same with us. When we have onboarding and we have a whole bunch of people come in at once, you got to have engineers. We got to have people available to onboard the new members. Same thing with you guys. What if you had 10 new customers this week? How would you handle that? How would you stagger it? What kind of service plans would you give to them? And what's your ideal mix if you had 10 customers come in? So last week we talked about Class A, B, and C customers. And Skip, what do we like our customers to be? I wait for you to drink to ask that question.
All right. I don't know.
Which
do we
class?
like?
Do we want all of our customers to be Class A's? Do we want to be Class B's? Do we want to be
Oh, no. Ideally, maybe it would be best if we had just one class of customers, but I think, I recognize that we have a variety. I like that what tends to be our B segments because we tend to have a little bit better margin with those guys, not necessarily the total revenue, but the margin is nice in those. And when we build out those playbooks, lots of times I'll encourage our members to focus on that B segment and build your playbooks around that one. Because if we can do things really successful there in that high margin environment, then we can try to replicate that into some of the other segments. So I don't know if that was the answer that you're looking for, but anyway, careful what you ask. You'll always get something from me.
Yeah, the services segment it's an interesting world just because we tend to think, oh, you have a server and now you got to take care of it. And when we sell things, we sell them in bundles. Excuse me. And that's okay, but with the Humanized IT framework, try to get you to think in terms of divide that. You have the assets you have, and then you have what you're going to do with them. So not every customer needs 24/7 service. Not every customer wants 8x5. And how you deliver your services to your customers is just as important as the assets themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and share the I'm going to go ahead and share my screen out here to show you guys what we mean by service audits versus architecture audits. And what,
And while Adam's bringing that up, let me talk a little bit more about it in the terms of the pillars. You may have heard me say this before. Architecture is what is there, services is how it's being used, risk is obviously the liability, and strategy is how does all that come together to help the organization. So when we think about services, one of the things you might want to keep in mind is if we, kind of pull some buzzwords out, services are often or can often be categorized as best practices or kind of industry standards. And there's a lot of validity to that. I encourage everyone to think carefully, and there is a little bit of logic behind why we go through architecture first. Yeah, we try to architecture first and then services, because you have to have the technology solutions in place before you can use them. And kind of our standard example on that is password management. If your ops team says, hey, we want to implement a password policy, it needs to be 45 characters, alphanumeric, it needs to be changed every 6 days. We need a triple MFA step, whatever it is they come up with. All right, whether it's good idea or not, it's not really going to matter if you don't have an password management solution in place to implement that policy. So it's very much a kind of a chicken and egg thing. And with architecture, you want to make sure they have the technology solutions that they need. So that was Q1. So now let's follow up and let's make sure that they're using those solutions in the best way for their organization.
yeah. And to kind of give you guys a little sneak peek this week of like how to service things. So we purchased the managed service platform tool to join our humanized IT community last year. And since then, we have been inventorying what the software does, what modules are there, what code we have to work with, where it's being hosted. And once we got that kind of asset inventory done, we started asking ourselves, what can we do? And so that's that roadmap that I'll be talking about towards the end of this session and next session. I'll be talking a little bit about what software features you can look forward to coming out with in 2022. And I can only do that because I know what we have, and I've talked extensively to the engineers on how we're going to get to the next step. So you do the same thing with your clients. You look through and you see, hey, this is where their inventory is. This is how many assets are under warranty, which ones are not under warranty. And now you got to go down through and ask these soft questions. Are you doing application support? Do you even have PC lifecycle management with your team? Maybe you don't. You can always turn that off if you don't do lifecycle management. And what areas do they need to do? How are you going to charge for that? This service report we have is a basic bundle of what you can do. Highly recommend putting your own flavor on this.
Yes.
So that you look unique. Do you add sprinkles to donuts when you bring them into the office? That's a service you provide. Every time an engineer comes, they come with sprinkles and donuts and bear claws or whatever the things are, beaver tails that they eat in Canada. All these things, like, what is it that you do that makes you unique? What's your unique flavor? And so you put that in here, and that way every year when you're re-upping your contracts, when your account managers are reviewing the account saying, hey, why aren't they getting their box of donuts this year? Question number 3. It's like, well, they would like to have it. We just haven't started doing it yet. So, current state, they've got a dedicated team. Oh, that SLA is when they get the box of donuts. That's when the sprinkles get put on. That's what the extraneous things that really make your MSP shine start coming into place. And so every second quarter of every year, we recommend people go through and make sure that your services are in alignment. Maybe last year you added a new service for VoIP. Maybe you added a new service for cybersecurity. This is a great place to put it. And say, are you monitoring these things? Are you adding in the new endpoint? You switched over to a new endpoint monitoring system. This is where you put it. And in the services, we're listing this out. This is not infrastructure. Always remember, people, how you take care of the assets is services. That's our service pillar. So endpoint monitoring, that is not infrastructure. That is services. Now, you may have a question in your architecture audit that says, "Are all endpoints monitored?" You might have something like that. You might have something that says, "Did we install this software?" Those things are done. But do you need mobile devices to be monitored? Maybe that's part of the service contract. Maybe it's not. Do they want the printers monitored? Maybe not. I don't have a printer. There's no printer.
So a little bit.
I'm paperless. I have one printer over here. It's basically a boat anchor. It's like a Dell 1300 I got maybe 10 years ago. I think if I printed it, something might happen. But anyways, it's mostly just holding papers for me and documents that get mailed to me.
Well, now, so to provide a little more, context on this, so like endpoint monitoring, this is a great one. So in the architecture assessment, we do have that sort of statement in there. Do we have endpoint monitoring available for these devices? And we can say current state, future state. All right. So, all right, we've got the solution installed, whatever it is you're using. When we come over to the services, now we need to deal with, what are we doing with those alerts? Are they just going into some email inbox that nobody ever reads? What is the expected actions on that? Do we have some time frames? Is it generating workflows? There's a lot that can go into the service that you provide on that endpoint monitoring. So that's how you make the distinction between the two. And if you go down this approach, you will save some time with your ops teams and your account managers, because if you try to drive this from the services side first, you're going to run into a lot of trouble. If you get a client that goes, "Hey, I want to know every time a password, an account gets locked out," all right? And if that's something that they want to know, but there is no mechanism within their environment to generate that activity, then you have to run through multiple steps. So make sure you kind of get your ducks in a row here, and so that you have the solutions, and then we will focus on the best way to use them.
Yeah, and well, Skip, you didn't post the link to everyone.
Yeah, it's we had a few more people join. I'll keep.
I'm fixing it. You got to change the chat to not.
Oh, yeah. So I just did it silly. Okay.
I know when the webinar is. So for those of you looking late, we have looks like we have a whole pile of you coming in all of a sudden.
Yep.
There's a webinar here at 3:00. It will be on YouTube later on, so if you can't attend the webinar, it's fine. We'll post it to the channel. We're talking to a CFO on how to talk to CFOs and get them into your QBRs and your meetings. The reason why we're talking about services over here, one of the things that I put in the newsletter that I said I would talk about was how to align customer services with what we talked about last week, A, B, and C. A little known trick that I used to talk about a lot was that when you're doing a services assessment, when you're talking about what services you can apply to the clients, a lot of you out there have pre-packaged deals. You have a silver plan, a gold plan, a platinum plan, and good, better, best. When it comes to services, you can almost look at a class A, a B, or a C and know where they're going to fit. So you can almost templatize this thing here. You know what they're going to want. So you might see where they are existing, like, oh, this is a class B. They're definitely going to want some, they're probably not going to want the mobile devices, but they're definitely going to want printer and workstation monitoring. But only our class A is really signed up for the mobile device monitoring. And you come down and you say, hey, what kind of patching? Oh, they're going to want all of that. That's normal. But they're not going to have any remote office. Okay, well then we won't worry about that. So you can prepare yourself for better audits and quicker audits by knowing this is a class B or class A or class C, and you're able to say X set expectations based upon the size of the client. That's just a quick little a cheat. Now, sometimes when you're like doing doctor's offices, for instance, they may just want everything, and you know that the bulk of your clients, your class Bs, all behave this way because they're doctor's offices. This is why we think it's really important to go back into your client and fill out what industry are they in. That way, when you do your services audit, you know they're a class B doctor's office in the medical field, and you're going to have this set of services is kind of like your default template. You can go look at another one. You can have one printed out that you have there as a cheat sheet, and you can go down through and say, this is what we do for doctor's offices. And you can immediately have a value there, cost savings, time savings, and everything. And you know, like, hey, on average, our doctor's offices all use these services. You might as well sign up for it. Otherwise, you're going to look like a chump.
And now, not to open too big a...
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, not to open too big a can of worms here, but there is also the option in your segments. So, you know, kind of the standard A, B, and C is a great place to start, but you may want to provide a little bit more detail in some of those areas. And you may want to create some segments based on the type of clients that you have. Are they healthcare? Are they a highly regulated industry of some sort? And you may create unique segments for those so that your playbooks match that industry, whether it's a big one or a small one, whether, you know, you can match up what their expectations are just based on their industry. So there's a lot of possibilities there with segments to enhance that as well.
Yeah, so go ahead and keep filling that, because you need the better you can group people, and I looked at it as grouping. Better you can group your clients into these segments, the easier it is for you to deliver services. If that makes any sense at all. And so I'm trying to remember where we edit that, Skip.
Oh, the different segments?
Yes.
Clients, and then at the top, and then you want to hit your setup, and then the client engagement playbook. And here are our segments.
So you can tell that Skip does this a lot more than I do. You can change this to, you know, mid-size, or you can say doctor's office. There you go. Set your frequencies here. So class B doctor's office, you're going to meet with quarterly, and you save. And now when you go over to your client segments, we can now see that, hey, let's start tagging these companies as that segment, so that we can say this is the group. We know this is Alice's group of people. We know these are her clients. This is how we treat them. We know we can go down these, make sure that their services are all aligned and they're all in this group. And that really kind of helps save a lot of time on how to serve your customers. We know they're the same. We know they do similar things. Let's treat them the same. We know they all need HIPAA compliance done in the fall. Let's go ahead and add that as a service. We're going to add it into the baseline, and they get billed for it every year. That way things aren't falling through the cracks. This is just a really great way to organize things so that you can stay on track with everyone.
Yep.
I got to change that back, don't I? It's going to drive me.
Yep, that'll mess us up in the future. So kind of closing comments on the services. You know, life is complicated. It's rarely just super simple. So the differentiation between architecture and services, that is not always going to be just clear black and white. There could be a little bit of bleed over between the two. But as you go through and structure these engagements and your reports to go with that, if you will continue with that philosophy of architecture is what they have, services is how they use that, you're really going to be able to create a methodology and a clear line of communication with your internal teams and your clients about how you address these specific items. If you want to get, you don't want to overwhelm your clients with too many projects. And so if you feel like you're pressing that, you can offer this distinction. Yes, Mr. Customer, we've got 4 projects on the roadmap around architecture. You need to purchase new equipment. But then we can follow that up with we have another 3 or 5 projects on the roadmap. And this is centered around better using technology solutions that you already have, that you've already paid for. Let's get your return on investment out of these solutions that you've already spent money for, and get that value into your business. And that's a totally different conversation than, hey, you need to buy a new server. So recognize what it is we're trying to do. Are we positioning a solution, or are we wanting to maximize the use of a solution? And that can drastically drive the tone, the conversation, the theme of your engagements with your clients.
Yeah, and to kind of wrap up the last bullet point on the service audits here is that you can increase pre-sales perceived value by using the dashboard here, even if you eliminate everything else and you just talk about services. So like, hey, you know, most companies stop at just getting you donuts. We bring you donuts with sprinkles. You know, having that extra item so that when they show that this is their internal score, this is where they score if they're working with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so use this little dial here to show kind of like, hey, you know, I see that people are kind of treating you well there. They get you a good knock. They've got some 24-hour service. But here's what we have. And so when you got those extra sprinkles on your services, such as we make sure we come in and do a lunch and learn once a quarter. We make sure we do a walkthrough every 2 months to make sure things are going smoothly, just a drop by. And these are things that we do extra. Now you're showing that 46%, yeah, sure, they're scoring 6% over industry average, but with you, they score 44% over average. And that is a huge deal. Sorry, 50% over average. That's a huge deal. Because now you've changed the perceived value that your MSP delivers more than their existing MSP, which they may have a great contract with. They might have a good deal with. You know, you can charge just a little bit more on the contract because look how much more you're providing than the incumbent. That is a great way to do pre-sales. You don't have to fill out the rest. The rest of this can be blank. It still looks good. So let's go ahead and remove linked. Yeah. Yelling at me. And so you're just doing this and like, hey, you know, once we get your architecture, risk, and strategy audited, man, you're going to look so much better. And you just happen to know offhand that this person is working with Toys R Us as their MSP. You know that MSP delivers this standard stack. And so you can show that differentiation. I know that you're using Toys R Us. They usually do these things. Here's what we do. This is why you want us. You can even just screenshot this and send it to people that you know and try to bite into somebody else's market share. And that's why boutique MSPs are doing so well right now, is they're able to offer those unique value propositions like, hey, we particularly look at doctors' offices and we treat them special because we understand how they work. You can go with a generic MSP or you can go with us. And like you can have down here as one of your items is you do health management system review. You know, you do things to help them out. I can put this back, otherwise it's going to annoy me. No, we're not in Australia. It always feels so good. I like watching the lines fill up. Zoltan told me I was goofy for wanting that animation there, but I still like it.
No, I like that.
Like it. The last thing I want to talk about today is we've been working really hard on figuring out what it is that we will be doing in the future for Virtual C. Not Virtual C, for Managed Service Platform and Humanize IT. And what we need to really hit upon here is that we are going somewhere. So this dashboard we just showed you, that is a service we provided that we felt was very, very important, that we felt was missing from the industry. And I see Mike over there is talking about seeing that contrast to be very powerful in the QBRs. Being able to set expectations with your clients and clearly define who you are is really important, because when I used to be a VCIO 100%, my biggest struggle was talking to MSPs. And I am an IT person. I've been an engineer all my life. I wasn't always a manager. I got forced into management kicking and screaming. Um, I was a data center guy. I was a cage rat, whatever you want to call us. And I dug under the desks. I remember installing NT40 and Service Pack 6, trying to get USB drivers to work. I remember transitioning from Windows XP to Windows Vista. I remember the nightmares, people. I know how to go from a Brocade Foundry setup to a Nexus setup. These are things that I did. And I had a hard time talking to you people. Like, so you come in with a stack of papers and your ideals, and you think that the client's gonna just do whatever you say, and sometimes they will out of intimidation, or maybe they just happen to have a budget that you fall in. But if you can show your value and what you're going to provide, you're going to go places with them. You're going to get buy-in. And to that end, we have kind of divided things up into 3 areas. One is, how are you talking to your client? That's the dashboard. How are you talking to your CFOs? That's going to be a budget dashboard. And then finally, an enhanced project roadmap for talking internally to your teams to figure out who's got what ball. And so what you can look forward to over the next 12 months is the one thing that I'm going to have the highest priority on, and I'd love feedback on this, is I'm going to be building out a nice budget dashboard for talking with CFOs. Thus the webinar this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be able to take any account manager. It needs to be able to import the architecture audit, so the asset inventory from whatever you're using, ScalePad or Autotask or LionGuard or whatever you have, and be able to digest it and say, when do we need to replace assets? What kind of life cycle do we need to have them to have? And what kind of purchase do we need to do over the next quarter or the next month or the next year? And are things that we can do to reduce spend when our clients are tight? This is all going to be part of a budget dashboard that's coming up. What kind of budget conversations do you want to have with your clients in a very easy fashion? But this is one of the features that is coming up. There's a lot to it. This is just my Miro where I'm playing around with things.
We're not seeing that if you're trying to show that
dashboard here. So being able to share the dashboard with your clients has been a feature that's been asked a lot. A lot of this is, there's some bugs in like the old software, which is all done in Angular. And what we want to be able to do is move everything to React. So a lot of those weird bugs that have plagued a lot of us are going to go away. They're just going to disappear. So as we move to React and a much more dynamic thing. So this is kind of the future of MSPL, at least for the next year of development, as we do heavy development, is enhancing the dashboard and creating a budget dashboard so you can do project proposals and you can have a narrative of what do you need to do in the future. And this is going to be all digested and automatically done for you. This will be very hands-off. You'll end up with a dashboard over here that shows you spend over time and being able to adjust and then export to a project proposal all in one screen. And then when you're done with all that, you should be able to come to your internal teams and say, okay, who's doing what project with which company? And that's going to be our enhanced roadmap. So you can already do the road mapping. You can already do some asset management. You can already do the dashboard. But by the end of 2022, this is all going to be a cohesive flow. I think Skip talks about the three areas that you have to deal with the client. And this is all coming into how are you serving your clients' needs with what you have.
So on that budget, we really do want some feedback. So let us.
My screen. What the heck?
So,
come on, Skip! You got to get on top of that. Here,
I trying to get it in
gesturing to this the whole time. Just everybody pretend. Yeah, the cost of MSP will stay. That's all part of this new packaging that we did last year, where everything kind of like was all jumbled together. One of the first things I fixed, George, is that we and Skip, we both said, okay, here's what everything costs, all is one plan.
Yeah.
And so you have the plans that are out there. That part of those the cost increase was to fund these developer things, but that's done. Not saying we'll never raise prices again because, hey, have you seen inflation lately? Anyways, the point is that now we have this fixed cost that we can put into consistently improving
Yeah.
the software, and these are the things that are coming out of that.
So let me spark some ideas with you guys here around this budgeting module. You know, right now we use the project roadmap to have some great budget conversations. And I like the way it works. I mean, it's really valuable. I've seen what you guys are doing with it. I know you have a lot of success with it, but I know we can make it better. So one of the things that I see a lot of members do is they put projects on the roadmap from the assessment, which is all correct and follows my little best practices sort of routine. We get pricing, we get dates, we get statuses, all the good stuff. But then you'll come back and you'll put some additional items on the project, and you're really encapsulating all of the OpEx expenses that the client may be having. Maybe it's just their service agreement that they have with you. But some of you are tracking some other things. I was working with someone the other day, and they're helping their customer manage their Sage accounting package. I feel sorry for them. But anyway, so I think that's a lot. But anyway, so they're working through that, and they want to drive that ongoing conversation with their clients. Some of you guys are really in with the telcos, and you're managing that internet and voice component, and that's an ongoing monthly expense that you might not be directly responsible for delivering the service, but you've been a part of the conversation, which is exactly where you're supposed to be if you're wondering. All right, so you're doing that right, but to get that on kind of a broader budget narrative and perspective, we're adding them as projects to the roadmap. Now, I would like to see that work better. I would like some delineation. I've got lots of ideas. Do we want to call these CapEx? Do we want to call these one-time expenses? Do we want to break these out? Is this an OpEx expense that we're just looking at monthly? Are we going to build in some recurring price increases in these activities? There's all these sort of things that we can put into the budget, but this doesn't, and Adam and I don't want this to be all of our ideas, okay? We're not working daily in an MSP, so we need your feedback on this. So please start sending these in. We can't guarantee everything's going to get in there, but we do want to make sure that this is going to hit a lot of the needs that you guys want.
Yeah, and most of this, comes off of people asking good questions. And I've just been like hammering this out, like, okay, what would that look like if we put that in place? And so the budget dashboard kind of came from a rabbit trail that I started chasing. I think it was Bob. I think Bob was the one who originally started me on the rabbit trail, and it was as I looked into further, I'm like, okay, I manage a lot of budgets in the corporate environment. I see what I would like to see. So I talked to some CFO friends of mine and said, hey, what would you guys like to see in a budget conversation with with a vendor? And this transparency, the ease of like, hey, you know what? It's been a hard year. We really can't afford to replace all these laptops. Okay, well, let's add a year on to your replacements, just temporarily. We call it the mod, and that will reduce the cost, but it's going to increase your risk. And so that's a great segue into you having conversations about risk management. Maybe instead of replacing all those laptops, they increase their services with you so that your SLAs are increasing to cover the cost of the asset. But the whole point is like the more you guys give us feedback, the more we're able to do this. And that's what the whole new plans are. So if you're not on one of the new plans, you won't see any of the React stuff. It won't hit your account. Your pricing stays the same. But if you're on one of the new plans, you're helping fund the new development. You're giving us feedback as to what you want to see. We're going to hit these on the roadmap. The other thing that is going to be really awesome, that'll benefit everybody no matter what, is the fact that we hired a back-end ConnectWise developer, and we're just finishing up our event program. I'm waiting for them to email us and tell us that we're done, and we're officially ConnectWise partners. We've always been great partners with ConnectWise, but this is the event program, so now we get extra access to more synchronizations, more API calls, and just direct support with ConnectWise for anything. So everything will be much more streamlined going forward from back end to front end. And we are planning on by 2023 just being this product that you can't live without.
Hey, and just another side note, I'm looking at our attendee list. I don't think there's anybody from recollection, but we would love to talk to a Kaseya shop. We don't do a lot. Obviously, that's big news here of late between Kaseya and Dado. And we, again, we want to be part of that operational. We're not the ops guy. Adam talks, a lot about us drawing the line at operations, but operations happen. And so we want to connect to that. And if there's better ways that we can serve you guys, anybody that might be using Kaseya, hit us up. I would love to walk through some of that stuff. We got a great, I got a great lesson in IT glue last month from one of our members. I really appreciate that. They kind of walked through. I was slightly familiar with it, but the more we can get familiar with your tools, I think the better we can support you guys going forward.
Yep. Our main focus is going to be on finishing up and polishing up ConnectWise, and then we're going to move into Autotask and try to add in some of those other tools as people send us requests. We need more information. We need to hear from you because you guys are in the trenches. You're the ones that are dealing with this stuff day in, day out, and your feedback will allow us to make a better product. So give us feedback. This is primarily a community. We are a membership community. We work together. We're trying to build things. We just happen to have a tool too. So thank everybody for coming on. I am going to start prepping for this webinar in a little bit over an hour. It's going to be a great one. Again, if you cannot make the webinar, it will be posted to YouTube. You will want to watch this one. So, all right. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Oh, hold on, give them a second. So I just posted, if you didn't get it, I know some people joined afterwards, but I just posted the link to the webinar. You still have time to sign up for that. So before we close the call, grab that out of the Zoom chat down there in the middle of your screen, hopefully. And hopefully you've got it by now.
All right.
All right. See you guys.
Thank you, everyone.